How do we define cross-cultural management? Cross-cultural management examines human behavior within organizations from the international perspective, or the study of management in a cross-cultural context. And it includes the study of impact of culture on human resource management, the national culture and organization, how cultural factors affect human resource practices. These are the components that made up the subfields of cross-cultural management. It is the study of the influence of society, the study of influence of societal or national culture on HRM practices. It is how cultural, it is a field of study, a subfield of study where we learn how cultural factors affect human resource practices. And if you see, when you want to compare, because if we want to define comparative human resource management, it seeks to describe, analyze, and compare HRM practices across countries. And so when you want to compare, you want to look at the differences. Why is it that the human resource management practice in Nigeria is different from that in USA, of Japan, of Germany? So it boils down to study of culture, the influence of culture on human resource management practices across countries. And that makes it imperative that we must start from looking at culture. What is culture? What is culture? Culture is a wide concept. Culture contains ideas about different countries, and as such, it has a cross-cultural effect. Culture is defined in various ways. The most extant literature defines culture as a complex whole, which includes knowledge, belief, arts, morals, laws, and customs, and any other capabilities acquired by man as a member of the society. That definition is accredited to Taylor 1871. You can see how old that literature citation is, or reference is. Culture is universal because culture is found in every human society and in every organization. A typical example of culture found in human society is the national culture. The national culture. Why the culture found in the organization is called organizational culture. In a wider perspective, therefore, concept of culture includes the national culture and the organizational culture. Now, national culture defined. We want to look what is the meaning of national culture. Hofstede, 2001, defined national culture as a profile of a society or country with respect to norms, values, and institutions. And if I want to draw the definition closer to you or to us, national culture is a social-cultural milieu where organizations don't exist in a vacuum. Organizations do not exist in a vacuum. They operate within the national culture where they are embedded. So national culture is a social cultural environment within which organizations are embedded and operate. That's the meaning of national culture. The important aspect of any culture is its value and relations to people in the society or organization. It is because values and relations are important in human society and organization that they are used. That's why they are used by most researchers as explanatory variables for cultural differences in comparative research. There are two approaches to describe, compare, and analyze how cultural factors affect HRM practices. The first approach is cultural perspective, and that is the second one is institutional perspective. We are going to look at cultural perspective. The cultural perspectives or cultural framework are so many. There are so many cultural frameworks, but we are going to look at the key cultural frameworks that provide reasons for differences in human resource management practices across countries. The first one is the Hofstede cultural dimension. Hofstede carried this research in 1980 and 2001. The second one is Trompenas and Habden Turner, 1993. The third one is the popular one, again, is Globe study, which was conducted by a group of researchers. That Globe leadership on organizational behavior and effectiveness. That's what that Globe means. You can see it's written in capital letter. They studied five researchers: House, Henges, Javidon, Dogban, and Gupta, 2004. Abbreviate, if you want to abbreviate it, House et al., 2004. And then the last one is the works of Hall, 1976. These are cultural frameworks that provides reasons for differences in human resource management practices across countries from different perspectives. But we're going to focus on the Hofstede 4 dimensions, national 4 dimensions of culture, national culture, and the Hofstede framework of cultural dimensions is considered the most suitable. The framework remains the most popular because it was the first that originated the idea of differences, cultural differences across countries. It was the first, and every other one I have mentioned took a clue, from Hofstede's research. The Hofstede's research dimensions provide system framework of assessing the differences between nations and cultures. Hofstede came up with a scoring proposal, or he proposed a system using a scale from 1 to 100, based on the idea that value can be placed upon 4 cultural dimensions. Are you very much? 4 cultural dimensions, namely power distance, individualism, and collectivism. Uncertainty avoidance is the third one. Masculinity versus femininity. Because of the Western bias, the 4 I have mentioned are the key dimensions of Hofstede's national cultural dimensions. The 4th one, because to cushion the effect of the Western bias, he carried out a research in the Confucian tradition and then came up with the long-term and short-term orientation. And then finally, the indulgence and restraint. As I said, he proposed scores from 1 to 100 to measure these dimensions. The first one is, you can look at what I'm sharing the screen, the table on the screen. Power distance. Nigeria, we're going to use Nigeria as our case study. Nigeria, USA, and Japan, as I mentioned previously. The power distance scored 80. And what is the power distance? It refers to the extent to which members of the society and organization expect and accept that power is unequally distributed along the hierarchy. Power is unequally distributed along the hierarchy. This occurs when bosses are differentiated from their employees in terms of status, salaries, and promotion. If you look at our organizations in Nigeria, taking for instance, the University of Lagos, department, for instance, we have different categories of staff. We have their status. We have different levels. In the academic level, we have professor, we have associate prof, we have associate prof, senior lecturer, L1, L2, assistant, and down the line. These are differences, and as these categories of staff exist, so also they have different power differentiations or power differentials. Salaries are not the same. Salaries are graded according to levels. And so power distance is a dimension that expresses how organizations or the society expect and accept that power is unequally distributed along the hierarchy. If you also look at organizations out there, you see that you have senior managers, you have the executive manager. In fact, you have from the board of director, to deputy general manager, a deputy general manager, and the AGMs, and down the line, down the hierarchy. So power is unequally distributed, and that is what Hofstede's power distance dimension is talking about. And in his measurement, in his research, he scored countries based on the extent to which these dimensions are visible in their countries or in the organization. In Nigeria scored 80. Nigeria scored 80 in power distance. Japan scored 54 in power distance. USA scored 40 in power distance. And the world average for power distance was 55. The implication is that Nigeria scored above the cutoff, 55. Japan and US scored below. It implies that Nigeria is a high power distant nation. And in a high power distant nation, decision-making process is centralized. You know what I mean by centralization of decision-making. The power comes from the up, down. Directives come from the highest hierarchy, down the hierarchy. It is top-down relationship or top-down directives. The structure is vertical, is tall, it's a tall structure. Japan is also a power distant culture. The US is a low distant culture. It means a contrast of what obtains in Nigeria is what obtains in US. It means they have a decentralized structure. And in a decentralized structure, there is freedom of enterprise. People are free. America is a laissez-faire country. It's a free. America is open system. What I mean by open system, the economy is not as if they allow everybody to come in. No, it's not what I'm talking about. But what I'm talking about is that they are liberal. It's a liberal economy that is, that allows privatization. A decentralized economy means that if people are involved, people have freedom. It is not like there is authoritative allocation of powers. No, power is decentralized. That's what you see, a contrast of what happens in a high power distant culture. The second dimension is individualism. Individualism means that whether people would prefer to work as individual or in group. People would prefer to work as individual or in group. And then collectivism refers to collective action or collective distribution of resources. So if you look at the score, Hofstede scored USA 91 on this index, Japan 46, and Nigeria scored 30, respectively, and the world average was 43. It means USA is an individualism country. And like I said, in an individualism country, you know what happened? Is the country, workers are very competitive. There is a competition, survival of the fittest. It's a macho culture. Payment is based on individual performance, individual effort. It's based in individual effort, unlike Japan and Nigeria, where reward and incentive is collective or group payment scheme. For instance, profit sharing is an example of a group incentive. You have individual scheme like salaries we receive individually, people receive salary, and collective action. You have societies. In Nigeria, you have societies. You can have a lot of society. Even in the university, you have cooperative societies. It is a characteristic of collective culture, where people work as a group. We give group assignment. It's a reflection of collectivism. But when you want to define collectivism in Asian countries, you know what it means. The government manages the whole economy and supports the people. The assumption here is that US belongs to individualism, while Nigeria and Japan belong to collectivism. 2001 and 1991 Hofstede. The third dimension is uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty avoidance culture. It refers to the degree of tolerance for uncertainty. It is the extent to which a society or organization is willing or ready to tolerate or avoid ambiguous or risky situations. Some can be risk averse, while others can be risk takers. Japan, for instance, scored 92 in this index. Nigeria scored 55, US scored 46, respectively. And the world average was 64. This implies that Japan operates a high uncertainty avoidance culture, while Nigeria and US scored below the cutoff score of 64, meaning that Nigeria and Japan are less tolerant tolerate uncertainty avoidance. But in uncertainty avoidance culture, they prepare against unforeseen or the future, against whatever that is going to. In fact, it is a country that is full of restrictions and regulations. For instance, the Saudi Arabian countries. They dare not go to that side and drink beer or pursue women. There is a law against that. Or you carry drugs. There are strict laws made to push up to control uncertainties. For instance, if you don't want to, in the industries, for instance, Japan, the succession planning, manpower planning is very prominent. It's a very prominent human resource management practices. The planning is superb. Manpower forecasting is excellent. These countries are not only Japan, there are countries in Saudi Arabia, in Southern Europe and Latin American countries, which include Greece, Portugal, Italy, Uruguay, and Belgium. These are countries that practice uncertainty avoidance culture. Whereas countries with lowest uncertainty avoidance culture spread across the globe includes Singapore, Jamaica, Denmark, Sweden, Hong Kong, and the rest of them. But in the case of Nigeria, the Hofstede empirical literature did not list Nigeria as uncertainty avoidance country. It implies that it means that Nigeria does not show a clear preference, whether it is low, whether it tolerates ambiguity or uncertainty, or it does not. Hofstede's research was very silent about that. Just like I said, in Japan, HRM practices like manpower planning, career planning, succession planning are built on strong and long-term forecasting. And this takes care of unexpected situations. The long-term and short-term orientation is the next one, the fifth one that was added to cushion the effect of Western bias. The long-term and short-term is connected with time orientation. It concerns search for virtues, which relates to Confucian teaching. In the Confucian teaching, they divide the attitude of perseverance, endurance, patience. The culture exhibits patience and perseverance, and that is why their economy is doing well. They can save money. They can save. They can use what they have to buy wealth. The cultural dimension describes the extent to which a society or organization shows a pragmatic or practical future-oriented perspective rather than a conventional term of the savings. Perseverance is a virtue of the economy. They exhibit that virtue, that feature, perseverance. Indulgence and restraint refers to a society or organization that allows relatively free gratification or satisfaction of basic cultural human drives. It relates to enjoying life and having fun, while restraint defines a society that suppresses gratification of needs and regulations by means of strict social norms. Now, if you look at the analysis of Hofstede dimensions of culture, we compared, we did a comparison of selected practices, of selected HRM practices of Nigeria, USA, and Japan. I referred you to 65 of the lecture note, which I will send to you later, where in a tabular form we did a comparison of the human resource management practices across Nigeria, USA, and Japan. The selected practices we compared include target setting. In a target setting, for instance, in a PD culture like Nigeria, it is the employer that sets the target, and the workers, meet up with the target. Target setting is the responsibility of the top management. Whether you like it, the employee likes it or not, you must meet the target. If you don't meet the target, they fire you. They fire the employee, the worker. So target setting is a characteristic, it's a feature of power distant culture. We compared in a low power distant culture, target setting it doesn't work. We compared compensation. America is a good example of compensation practices. American culture exhibits pay for performance compensation. If you work, you are paid according to your performance. The extent to which you have worked determines how much you will earn. That is performance pay management. In Nigeria, Nigeria practice individual incentive as well as collective or group incentive. We share. There is example of a group, like I said, example of group incentive is profit sharing. We have other forms of incentive, individual incentives, our bonuses, even salary, the 13th month salary, to motivate workers. These are examples of compensation. I compared Nigeria, USA, and Japan. You can read it, you will read it, you will see it on page 65 of the lecture note. Don't think the lecture is up to 65 pages. No, it's a journal article, published journal article. Manpower planning, succession planning, career planning, the uncertainty avoidance culture exhibits this manpower planning and human resource, succession planning to cushion the effect of risk taking or ambiguity. Flexibility work arrangement, Nigeria is good at that. Flexible work arrangement, flexi time. Investment of human capital, Japan is excellent in that practice. They know that training is important, that training is not a cost, that training is an investment. Some organizations don't train because they think training is a cost, C-O-S-T, that's what I mean, rather than looking at it or seeing it as an investment that will yield the result or that will use profit in the long run. Japan is very good. America is also good in training. Awards, recognition, celebration, and gratifications. Nigeria is number one here. Giving of awards, recognition of titles, celebration of one form of celebration or the other. Public holidays, several public holidays in a year. I'm not criticizing it, but that's what Hofstede's dimension of culture gave us example in indulgence and restraint. Indulgence and restraint. Some people don't give gratification. Some people don't receive gratifications. They see gratifications as as a bribe. While some cultures receive gratification for one good thing or the other done to them or for them. So that is these are the 6 practices we compared across Nigeria, USA, and Japan. Criticisms. Scholars have criticized this national cultural dimension by Hofstede in several forms. They have looked at it from its relevance. Schwartz 1999 looked at it from its relevance. How relevant is this? The way he compared using the dimensions. In fact, basing the differences on value. Value system is not value system and its relationship with an organization may not be enough. That's what Schwartz 1999 talking about. It's not relevant. Some criticize it based on the cultural homogeneity. How homogeneous is the culture? So you will read about 8 points that we are given used for the criticisms of Hofstede's cultural dimensions. So I came up with some questions, revision questions here. The first one is, in a tabular format, present the Hofstede's national cultural dimensions and discuss for Nigeria, US, and Japan. Briefly interpret their implications. Number 2, mention 3 dimensions of the national culture as proposed by Hofstede 1980 and explain 5 of its features in each case. Then criticize the application of Hofstede's cultural dimensions in comparative human resource. And that is the end of the cultural perspective. The second perspective is the institutional perspective.